All right, so the LS Swapped FD is back. The first time I had it in, we had some electrical problems due to mice chewing on wiring, some neglect from sitting. So now it's back with the drivability issue where it's running rough. It breaks up when you give it any throttle. So we'll see what's going on with it. Okay, so yeah, clutch pedal all the way on the left. Put it all the way in. Yep, and then grab the key. And then turn the key over and hold it until I tell you.
Wait, which way?
All the way forward. So it does have some sort of cam in it, but it still should be idling that low peak. Seems like it has a misfire. So we don't have a scan tool here, but I suspect that it's one or two cylinders misfiring. Just to do like a quick test while I was idling, I went and just unhooked each coil to do a balance test. And it seems like this cylinder here is not contributing whatsoever. So you can just unplug the connector and kind of watch the engine. And if it starts shaking more, then you know it's doing something. But this one, you unhook it and it's exactly the same. So I started here, I pulled a plug and it looks like it's black and it's soaked with fuel. It reeks like fuel. I pulled another one on this bank to compare and this one looked fine. So just to do a quick test, we're gonna start it up and we're gonna check the action on the spark plug. We get it grounded out so that so it'll ignite, and we'll see if it's doing its thing. So, just because I'm lazy, I don't feel like running into the store to buying a scan tool to pull codes. Another quick test I can do is check the temperature on the headers to see if there's one that's a lot lower than the other one. So we'll start over here. Tire temperature probe I just happen to have kicking around. isn't the most accurate test because where you place the probe exactly matters, but just as a rough test, I think we can go ahead and say that there's something going on with these two cylinders. Do another check again. 170, 173, 173, and then boom, starts climbing right up. So we can at least start to isolate that we know something's going on with these two cylinders. We know that we have spark present. So now we're going to start looking at, is there anything unique to those two cylinders? Perhaps a vacuum leak, perhaps some injector circuit issues, something like that going on. But this will at least help isolate where to start next. So now I'm going to look for a diagnostic connector. I'm not sure if they spliced one in, so, oh, that definitely wasn't there last time. Oh, look what we got here, diagnostic connector with a really nasty corroded pin. Okay. Also, just taking a quick glance, the ECU was down on the floorboard, and this thing has been sitting over the winter. I don't know if maybe at one point it had a water leak, and this thing was just chilling in a puddle of water. So I'm also going to keep that in the back of my mind as I diagnose what's going on. But yeah, that's not good. All right, code reader acquired. Luckily you can go right to the parts store and they'll rent one out. You get to pay for it, but then you bring the receipt and return it and good to go. So let's plug it in here. Let's see what we got for codes. Interesting. So throttle pedal position sensor switch A circuit low. All right, so now I'm looking at some live data. The TPS code I don't think would cause a misfire, but this will tell me a little bit more about what's going on. So, all right, let's start at the top. It's got one DTC stored. Fuel system bank 1 is an open loop, load percentage, engine coolant temperature sensor. So the short-term fuel trim bank 1, 0, long-term fuel trim bank 1, 1.6. So here's where we start to see something a little suspicious. So long-term fuel trim on bank 2, it's adding 25%, so it's maxed out. So it's running lean on bank 2 and trying to compensate. So manifold in KPA, it's key on, engine off. So I don't know what, we're at sea level right now. I'll have to look up, make sure that sounds right. But yeah. So this is starting to help us narrow it down even more. All right, so now that it's running, we'll look at some stuff too. So, all right, we're in closed loop right now on both banks. All right. Term also on bank 2. So one is like a live fuel trim, and then the other one is a Learns long term, or sometimes it's at idle and then the other one So I wanted to do a fuel pressure check. When I could get it idling, I had around 25 to 35 PSI at idle. Spec should be around 60. As soon as you give it any throttle, it drops down. I wanted to take a fuel sample too, just to check that out. Smells pretty weird, but it doesn't look like awful. Not like it's completely mixed or anything like that, but either way, I still wanted to take a peek at it. So next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the fuel pump and inspect the wiring and go from there. All right, so our fuel pump was operating at like 6.5 volts, just barely enough to build fuel pressure. I found one shoot power wire going to the fuel pump. I repaired that. Now we're at almost 60 PSI. Let's do a little comparison check and see what these cylinders are doing. So we still have some work to do on the RX-7, but to kind of have some sort of conclusion for the video today, what I think was going on was the fuel pressure was just enough to keep it idling, and it was feeding bank 1, but bank 2, it was probably aerated, and that's why I was reporting as lean. So this is like a returnless style system, and so the fuel comes in here, goes across, and then it stops right here at these two cylinders. So these two cylinders seem like they weren't contributing as much as the others, but when a fuel injector doesn't have sufficient pressure, it's not a nice atomized spray pattern. It's more of like a large droplets of fuel, which is why the spark plug was soaked in fuel. So what I'm going to do is just preventative maintenance. We're going to do spark plugs and we're going to do plug wires. But I mean, as of now, it's got full fuel pressure, 60 PSI, runs good, idles good, pulls good, makes like 450 wheel. But yeah, I'm not a rotary purist. I'm used to looking down those flip-up headlights and hearing rotary engine. I'm used to the way that they build power. I think they're just so cool. They're so unique. And even though LSs and LQ, whatever, truck motors are pretty cool and they make a lot of sense, I still just prefer this chassis with the rotary. So I don't know, maybe we'll get ours going soon. Or maybe we'll just K-swap it and that'll feel a little bit closer. But yeah, it doesn't feel like a Corvette. It just doesn't quite feel like an RX-7, if that makes any sense. But yeah, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.